everyone, so during this YouTube video today we'll be getting ready for some stop motion animation, you could say, while learning about how I do this process along the way.
Interesting. Hello, don't be afraid. I am the cure.
Now, have you ever wanted to capture your own stop motion video but never really been sure how to do the process? Well, it might be easier than you think, because all you really need is a cell phone, lights, and some form of tripod. So I'll do my best to simplify everything here when it comes to stop motion. I'll be breaking it down into 3 simple steps so you can follow along to create your own animations. Now, for those of you that don't know, stop motion is a filming technique where you take several photographs and play them back as a video. This gives the illusion of motion even though in each frame is a still image. But how you take these images is crucial to the final success of your film or final result. So let's go over the steps. Step 1, equipment and preparation. Now, as a minimum, you're going to need a few things to get started. For one, a smartphone, and you're going to need some lights to light up your scene. Now, generally, a little desk lamp will actually work quite well for this. Now, for you claymation animators, be fair warned, well, light actually throws off a little bit of heat, so be careful where you place things. Now, LEDs generally don't throw off as much heat, but bear this in mind, they still do actually put off some, so you are, well, under the constraints of time to a certain extent with claymation. Now, obviously, you're going to need a character to animate. It doesn't really matter what it is. It could be a toy character, it could be a toy car, it could be just about anything that comes to the imagination. You're also going to need a phone holder, a mini tripod is really going to help, and finally, some modeling clay. So once you get your scene set up, it's really important nothing changes or nothing moves in between taking pictures. For example, you don't want your table or desk to move in any sort of way. Well, to give you an example of how far I take this, my art table here is technically screwed to the wall. We don't want the lighting to change either, that could cause unwanted flicker. You don't want your camera to move either. Now, even your wardrobe is technically important. I personally don't wear any bright colors when I'm doing any sort of filming or photography. Basically, you can wear any color you want as long as it's black. So basically, the premise is the only thing you really want to move or change in the scene is your character. Now, one of the most important things is to keep your camera steady and, well, not moving, depending on the scene, but today we're keeping things simple. Now, there are a number of ways you can keep your camera steady. You can use a mini tripod, that works really well, and I do actually have one, but honestly, what I use probably for a vast majority of my films is a Lego tripod. Now, honestly, that does sound a little strange, but think of it this way. A lot of the time, I can essentially build the tripod to my own needs depending on the scene, so Lego actually works very well. Now, the most budget and simple way to do this is actually just using plasticine clay. Essentially, take your cell phone holder and mush it into the plasticine, and there you go. You can also sculpt the clay to get some movement out of your camera, but a combination of Lego and clay actually works best for this. Now, on to step 2, shooting some footage. There is a number of ways you can get your images. You can do this using your native camera app, but the problem with this is, well, you're just going to end up with a bunch of pictures. Now, what we want is animation or video, and by far the fastest and easiest way to capture these images is a dedicated stop-motion app. Now, what I use is Stop Motion Studio. It's free and available for both Android and Apple. You're then going to want to start a new movie, so one of the first things we're going to do is go to our settings and put your camera in manual mode. We want these settings locked in. You want your manual white balance, focus, and shutter speed locked. Now, the basic principle of taking a stop-motion video is take a picture, move your object, and then, well, repeat until you're done all your frames. Now, if you're touching your phone to take each image, there is a problem with doing that. You're running the risk of moving your camera around and ruining your shots. Even the smallest of bumps will be noticeable in your final film. So if your tripod isn't particularly steady and you find you're moving your camera around every time you tap the screen, there are a few features in this app that will really help. One of which being a timer. For example, you could set your timer so it takes a photograph every 5 seconds. You can then hit record and you now have 5 seconds to move your character before it takes another image. Therefore, you no longer need to touch your phone to take a picture. And this could help keep your final product nice and steady, but you do run the risk of getting your hands or yourself in the shot. What I personally like to use is a set of headphones with a volume button built in. This volume button doubles as a trigger for the camera, so it's another great way to take each image without touching your phone. Now, say you're animating along and something moves that you don't want to move. There's another handy feature in this app called the ghost effect. At least, I think that's what it's called. Essentially what this feature does is allow you to see the previous images taken, which is basically a transparent image, so it kind of allows you to basically plan your animations to make them as smooth as possible. And I personally use this for every animation. It is very useful in helping out plan your movements. Now, frame rate is also important, and I've played around with a few different ones. And honestly, what I found works the best for me is 2 and 24 FPS. So, 2 pictures played at 24 frames per second. Some people use 3 and 30, and my older animations are at that speed. But I found 2 and 24 FPS a lot smoother, and some use 1 and 12, but I personally like having the extra frame. Also, another animating trick you can use to get your characters to do jumps, flips, and or moving just in unnatural ways, try using a piece of clay to hold your character up or object to basically help it hold still so you can take the next frame. However, you might have to get clever with your camera angles in order to hide the magic. But once you have all your pictures taken, it's time to go through them all and make sure you have no rogue ones, like shots with hands in them. You can then export your video for the third and final stage, editing. The software you use is entirely up to you. I personally just use the free editing software on my phone. But you can even send the file to a desktop or laptop and edit it from there. Now, one of the most important things when it comes to editing your stop-motion videos is sound. Now, when it comes to using sound effects, timing is essentially everything. And sometimes I get the sound before I even animate, so I know what I'm working with and know how long things need to be. And one other thing you want to avoid is what's called a very hard cut or a sound cut. To avoid this, you can basically use the fade effect to ease into the sound effect. You can also use this technique to blend your sounds into the next scene or together to, well, come up with something very unique. So be sure to try stop motion with your phone because honestly, it's not as hard as you might think. And recently, well, obviously I've inspired a lot of younger claymation artists to do their own stop-motion animation cartoons, so hopefully this video was very helpful. Now, I do understand this can be a bit of an intimidating process, but hopefully you've learned some new tricks to make your life just a little bit easier. Anyway, I would like to thank you for sticking around to the very end of the video. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed the content, comment below what you think, share with your friends, and perhaps consider subscribing if you're new, and have your post notifications turned on so you don't miss any of the new updates. Anyway, that's enough from me. Till next time, take it easy.